What is going on, golf fans? Hopefully you can hear me. My mic was giving me a little bit of trouble, but we're here for our round 2 live stream. Gonna break down props in PGA DFS for tomorrow and give you guys an idea of some of the things I saw out there today that might be helpful, might be a little bit useful for Friday's action. So first off, hopefully everyone had a great Thursday, whether you're watching golf, hard at work, like I know a lot of you are out there. I got in a ton of steps today. We ended up walking, me, Martin G down there in chat, walked most of the course today. And I have to say, one of the worst, if not the worst, golf course setup that I have ever seen. And it wasn't really from the golf side. It wasn't from, the fact there was a ton of birdies out there, right? We were expecting that. I think I was really the main person in the community, right, that was trying to warn people that this is going to be a really easy US Open. On top of that, it was impossible to get around the damn place. There was about a quarter mile, sometimes even a half a mile walk in between holes. They had sections of the golf course completely roped off that you couldn't get from like hole 8 to hole 9. There was no way to reasonably follow guys like John Rahm out there. And I had a big prop sweat that I was going after. I really wanted to see him play hole number 9, and that wasn't a thing. So you're going to hear this from a few people that were on site. Just from an in-person viewing perspective, it's the worst golf tournament that I've ever been to. So I have to give a little bit of a few gripes about that. But in terms of the actual golf that I saw, it was fun. It was entertaining, right? There were lots of birdies, a ton of bogeys to be had. And if you didn't have your best stuff, you got completely exposed, right? It was really a fine margin between shooting something like 5-6 under par and then going out there and shooting something like 4 or 5 over par. So expect that to continue, even if they make this golf course more difficult. When guys have their best stuff, it's very apparent, especially watching in person, that these guys can take it to something like a 64, 65. I think even with more difficult pins. So we learned a lot about the course. We'll go through some of the stats, things that we should keep in mind, especially for Showdown and for props. But it played exactly how I expected it to, maybe even a little bit easier than I was expecting it to, which should help us out for our main slate lineups. There's a lot of correlation I went after this week. There were a lot of more birdie or better focused kind of guys that I went with. And if we can get a few 6 of 6s through, I feel really good about our chances, especially after seeing it today. So first off, wanted to start with that. Welcome on in, everyone, to chat. We got Max down there, Carl, who also thought it was interesting. Completely agree. What's going on, Mark, Alex, Jonathan down there? We got Arrows. We got Prize Picks posting props. Look at that. Perfect timing for the stream, right? Sometimes they're a little bit late with the prop boards, but looks like they're on it today. Shame on LACC. Yeah, my boy Martin, by the way, we walked the course all day. So first off, right on to you, Martin. That was a lot of fun out there. But yeah, dude, I know your legs are jello. I know my legs are jello out there. I've walked my fair share of courses. I do a lot of like walking, jogging for exercise when I'm down there in South Florida. I believe it was like 25 like flights of stairs is the equivalent of elevation change that I walked today. Then nearly 10 miles. It was a little bit brutal out there. So if I seem a little bit more quiet, maybe a little bit lower energy today, it's because I'm absolutely exhausted. And a lot of that's because of the course. Let's go through what we saw today. So if we take a look at the stat breakdown, let's make sure, right, we're on the US Open. PM Wave actually played easier than the AM. That might be something to keep an eye on. It might just be a one-day aberration. It's kind of hard to tell, right, just after a one-day sample size. But the weather today was pretty much the same all day. If anything, I thought the wind gusts actually might have been a little bit higher there in the afternoon. You could feel the sustained winds, especially in some of the higher holes in the PM wave. And the wind gusts were pretty much non-existent, though, right? There was nothing gusting through to that 10 to 15 mile an hour range. It was just that the sustained winds in the afternoon were actually more significant. So you may think that would make the course more difficult, but that was not the case, right? You saw the scoring average was about 0.4 shots easier in the PM wave, and that has to do with temperature. It was a little bit warmer in the afternoon. I believe the firmness of the fairways may have actually helped the players in the afternoon and shortened up a relatively long golf course. So it's nuanced. I don't know if this is going to continue into rounds 2 through 3. I'm going to play the course a little bit more straight up tomorrow. I'm not really going to target those PM guys. Right, it was a 0.4 stroke advantage. And what I think might be a cause for it, not just right dealing with the slightly higher temperatures is I think the quality of player in the PM wave, at least based on my eye, right? Based on especially like walking the course, it felt like there were a lot fewer groups of like all of those amateurs, right? Of shitty players. Like you had, I know, Scheffler, Rom in the AM wave. You had guys like Ricky, right? Xander Schauffele in the AM wave, but it felt like it was a little bit deeper in terms of talent level for the guys that we saw in the afternoon. So maybe that's just me being on the course, right? Only seeing so much of the field. Obviously, didn't see everyone out there today, but that was at least my take on it. It felt like the average player in the PM wave might have just been a little bit better than the AM. So I would say don't look into the numbers too much, right? It played pretty easy across the board. And if we look at the ceiling performances, right, there's still some AM guys on here, right? In fact, Xander, Ricky Fowler, both were AM players, right? The quote unquote harder wave, and they still shot 8 under. Let's see. Wyndham Clark was PM, right? Rory McIlroy was PM and whatnot. But you have Scheffler up there, right? Siwoo was an AM wave golfer. You had Bryson, who was an AM wave golfer. It's a pretty good mix, right? And in fact, your best 2 performances were off in the early conditions. So that's kind of my counter argument to going out there and overreacting to this news, especially considering that's the first time we've ever seen this golf course. In terms of conditions tomorrow, it does look like we're getting that overcast for much of the day. It looks like on here on Windfinder, sorry, not Windfinder. This is Windy. We're done with Windfinder. That used to be us a few weeks ago. But yeah, in the PM wave, right around like 4 p.m., that overcast, that marine layer is supposed to go away. I'm going to put supposed over here in quotes because they said it was supposed to go away at 3 p.m. 2 days ago, right? Wednesday, the practice round Tuesday, right? When I wasn't at the course, it didn't happen. When I went Wednesday for the practice round, they said it was going to clear up at 3. It never cleared up. It was overcast until 7 p.m. yesterday. And then today, it's still overcast. And it's 8:10 p.m. here, right? The sun is going down. So they've called for this marine layer to go away the last 3 days, and it hasn't happened. So that might be why we saw the scoring average as easy as it was, right? That marine layer never went away. If it does go away tomorrow, right? Anyone that's going out there and trying to attack these PM wave golfers might get screwed, right? Because if it does go away, this course does get a little bit firmer and faster tomorrow afternoon. It could play significantly more difficult than what we saw today. And there could be maybe instead of a 0.4 stroke advantage to the PM wave, it might be a 0.4 to 1 stroke disadvantage for the PM wave. So that's, I guess, the one thing I would keep an eye out for. If there's going to be anything that I really think changes this golf course, it's not the 10 miles an hour wind, right? It's not the 13 mile an hour wind gusts. That's pretty much the same thing we saw today. It made little to no impact on play out there. What I'm much more worried about is when this marine layer is going to go away. We go down here, let me bring up another set of projections. We'll bring up the HRRR model. You can see they're calling for, maybe slightly higher winds there in the afternoon wave, but they're calling for the marine layer to stay in the entire day. Maybe a little bit of sun poking out in the afternoon, but that's pretty much what they called for today, right? Just slightly, partly cloudy conditions, and it never really ended up evaporating off. So I'm expecting very similar numbers. The only X factor, right, and I do think this is going to be a factor because I need to point this out now, would be the golf course setup, right? Would be them going out there, making these greens extra firm, cutting them a little bit shorter tonight, going out there, choosing especially difficult pins for Friday. That is a little bit out of our hands, right? We don't really know how they're going to set up this course. They could set it up the same. It could play to the similar scoring average, or we could see them go out there and just completely try to punish these players, right? Put a lot of pins on huge slopes, right? Make the putts nearly impossible to make. They might not water the greens. They might go out there, cut them about half as the greens it is to half the level that they typically do. They're going to try something. They're going to pull all the stops out, right? They don't want to see -8 winning this tournament. That's the best round in U.S. Open history, and they shot it twice. This scoring average of plus 1.38 is the lowest scoring average in opening round history at the U.S. Open. I cannot imagine that they want that to continue. And it might be out of their hands, right? They might try to make this course more difficult. They might use the toughest pins that they can for the next 3 days, and it might not matter, right? It might still play easier than 2 strokes over par, which for a U.S. Open is kind of unheard of. So just wanted to throw those narratives out there. That might be a part of the setup tomorrow. And I'll double check on Twitter to see if we have any of the pin locations yet, but I have a feeling that they're not going to be out. But, we'll check. We'll go through it, make sure. Let's see. PJ Tour comms. Do we have pin locations? Doesn't look like it. That's unfortunate. We'll circle back on that later and see if they give us that info. But now let's go over to the DFS side. So if we're going out there, we're playing Showdown for tomorrow. We don't really have a weather edge to go off of. That's how I'm playing it, right? I think it's going to play pretty straight up. I think if you're going to try and break a tie, maybe you take the AM guys, right? Just hoping that maybe the PM wave does have that marine layer evaporate off. Does have to play in slightly harder conditions. But other than like a tiebreaker, I wouldn't look into it more than you have to. What I'm more focused on and what we're going to go through here are ownership pivots, right? When we have Showdown, and if you've been here before, if you've been here for months, right? Luke's going on the whole ownership tangent again. But I have to, right? If you're new to DFS, if you're new to Showdown, you need to know this. It's all about taking pivots. It's all about game theory for Showdown. Golf is a wacky sport, right? The scoring average today, just to give you guys an idea, right, was better than 71.5. A lot of the underdog props I took today didn't hit. Guys like Lowry, Fleetwood, Hideki Matsuyama, let's see, Jordan Spieth, Patrick Cantlay, for example, all went over their strokes, which doesn't seem like all that much an outlier, except when the scoring average was lower than their projection, and they're clearly the elite tier players in the field, right? If those sort of guys can go out there and suck that much for round one, right, you need to embrace that volatility, right? Golf's a 4-letter word for a reason. And if you're going to see players that are twice, sometimes 3, 4 times higher owned than their peers, well, just don't play them for Friday Showdown, right? These people out there, myself included, right? I'll lump myself into the argument, don't have crystal balls, right? We don't know who's going to go out there and shoot 5, 6 under par tomorrow, right? We have guys that we think might be a little bit more likely to do so, right? But none of them, and I mean none of them out there, are 3, 4 times more likely to succeed than really anyone priced around them, right? There's no one on the board that mispriced that they're actually worthy of being that chalk. So you'll see on here, guys that are getting a bunch of ownership, right, over here on the right tab, are almost like automatic fades for me. So 30% Scotty Scheffler, right? No, thank you. Rory McIlroy over here, 26.9%, right? Like I know they had pretty good rounds. No, thank you though, right? They're sometimes 2, 3 times higher owned than some of the pivots we'll go through here later. Let's see. A DJ, right, after his really good round today, right, 21% owned. No, thank you. Ricky Fowler, nearly 30% owned, right? No, thank you. 21.2% owned Bryson DeChambeau. I think you guys get the point. I'm looking for guys that maybe struggled a little bit in round one, or maybe not necessarily struggled in round one, but maybe spun their wheels a little bit, right? So like a Brooks Koepka, a Patrick Cantlay, for example, both shot slightly better than the field average, but compared to some of their peers, right, especially the ones that went out there and broke par, the sentiment on them is just so much more negative than it probably should be, right? They actually had a slightly above average day. Now, given their caliber, right, given their talent level, pedigree, so on and so forth, you probably expected a little bit more from these sort of players, but let's not trash them and just say that they were horseshit round one, right? Like maybe horseshit for their standards, but it's not like they deserve to be 3 times lower owned than somebody like a Scotty Scheffler. So, a John Rahm, I do think will get a little bit of ownership, but I love him at only 14.6%. And guys like Brooks and Patrick Cantlay are among my favorite plays on the entire slate. So sure, I know they didn't have the best round one, but now we're getting sometimes half, a third of the ownership. And that is a spot that I usually take advantage of. Down here in the 8, 9K range, guys like Jordan, right? Terrell Hatton didn't have the best days. I have no problem getting there, especially because I have them at single digit ownership. I've got Matty Fitz at single digits. We've got Hideki, JT, right? Guys that shot over par that no one's getting to, right? Like 4, 5 times lower ownership than some of the guys around them, making them just clear game theory pivots. And in the 7K range, right, ownership is a little bit more spread out. There's a lot more people to choose from. And outside of, let's say, 4 or 5 primary examples, there aren't a ton of guys that you just have to fade. You have to go out there and do. So I would probably stick away from most of the chalk. I think if you want to take like one, if you have to take chalk, maybe 2 pieces of guys that are maybe 12, 13% plus owned, but I don't think I'd go overboard with it. I would try and keep it a little bit modest there. Let's catch up on chat, see what's going on down there. Down in chat, where are we at? Luke's the GOAT. I appreciate you, Tommy. You're the GOAT. John Cook commented on the telecast that it kept you out on the perimeter. Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. And like literally the elevation changes are the worst part. It's just way too exhausting. Like tomorrow, for example, like I love golf, guys, right? I want to watch it all in person. I'm only going for half the day. I can't do a full day again. That was like it was like running a marathon out there. What's going on, Oss the Boss? He said Prize Picks, BOB, and Strokes are up. I mean, you have the Strokes props on Underdog. Cool, sweet. We're getting boards up. Hopefully, they post the birdies over there on Underdog soon. LACC is more like an outdoor hike with elevation changes. Completely agree with you. It's like you need a hiking stick out there, right? In boots. It's one of those kind of courses. They still got Fowler shooting over par on the prop side. After shooting a 62. That's kind of crazy. Homa and Fowler are at 3.5 birdies. I don't hate that, right? We took Homa today, absolutely smashed. So I could see myself going there. Cam Smith at 71. Yeah, I took him at 71.5. I'd probably go back to him there too. So yeah, we're not on the prop side yet, but we'll talk about that later. You won $112 on the Fowler and Homa over 3.5 birds. That's awesome, dude. Good stuff. Any other birdie props you like an Underdog? Yeah, we're going to look at those later on. We'll do that towards the end of the stream. Next 10, 15 or so minutes, we'll be on the DFS side. What do I think about the cumulative strokes? Got to look at it later. Not sure yet, honestly. Did I get to see any Rory? I did. Saw a little bit of Rory out there. I followed Jordan Spieth's group a little bit more. And I have to say, guys, I saw hole-in-one today. So I've seen 2 hole-in-ones in my life now. I only got to see like the last half, actually maybe even just full second of the hole-in-one where Sam Burns spun it back into the hole. So that was pretty cool. I also saw Victor Hovland hole out from about 190 yards today for an eagle. So the golf was crazy. I didn't get to see that much Rory. Saw him a little bit, but still saw a ton of quality golf. Should you play Minwoo Lee? Not my favorite play, but you can. I don't think he's out of play. He's not too chalky. Not sure, man. How much did I win from the 3.5 Underdog bet slip? I didn't put that much on a single slip. It was spread over a bunch of different slips, Justin. I'm not that crazy. Let's just say that. The winning Underdog slip for tomorrow, Rory under, Smith under, and DJ under. Lock it in, Kyle. Where did you end up eating last night? Place right next to my Airbnb. It was a sushi place. It had a lot of good reviews, and it was fantastic. I have to say that. Factors contributing to low scores: up tees on 3, 7, 10, and easy pins on 3, 6, 8, 10, 15, and 18. That's what No Laying Up saying. I would believe them. Like, they're on site. They're very knowledgeable about golf. I think the easy pins part might not necessarily be true because I did think there were a few tricky pins out there. If they did have up tees on holes 3, 7, 10, and 11, that could be worrisome, right? Especially if they're using the back tees. Would you make a stand on playing a certain wave? No, I wouldn't. No. I don't see an advantage to be had. I think if you're going to take a stand on playing a wave, you take the AM guys, right? You hope that the marine layer, all of the cloudy overcast conditions that we've had, just goes by. That's very speculative, right? That's a gamble that you're taking on your part. But if you're going to do so, that's the gamble that I would take, but I wouldn't do it, right? Just for full disclosure purposes. So let's go through a few other players that I like here. In the 7K range, a Sahith Thagala, Patrick Reed, who I liked going into the week. Those are guys I'm looking for a bounce back from. Let's see, Mito Pereira, right? Didn't play that well as chalk, so he's much lower owned now, which makes me much more willing to get to him than when he was like 15% owned in some of the contests for main slate. Patrick Rogers, Seamus Power, both guys that I like here. Just guys that didn't play horribly, right? Some of them played horribly, right? Adam Schenk didn't play all that well, but like a Tom Hoagie, right? A Kurt Kitayama, another guy who played pretty poorly. But there's a good mix down here, right? We have the Molinaris of the world, right? Who's a local that plays this golf course all the time. Like getting to that upside potentially. You got Scott Stallings, a guy that makes a bunch of birdies. A Sergio Garcia, a guy that showed a little bit of form today, right? Even par, I know it's not sexy, but that was still better than the field average, right? So we can't look at that as a huge negative. KH Lee, he didn't have the best round, but still +3. I don't think it's as bad as it looks on paper. And only 1.1% owned. So down low, I'm not taking any chalk. Let's see, who's the chalkiest value player that I'm getting to? I would say like a Mito, right? 8.8%, but he's like half the ownership that he was for main slate. Let's see, 8.7% on a Cameron Young, but he's $7,800. especially below 8 grand. Right? I'm not taking anyone that's 10% plus owned. So I think if you're going out there, you're setting a role for your player pool, right? Going out there, selecting yeses on the guys that you're going to take, maybe just make the 10% roll, right? From $8,000 plus, you can play a few guys that are going to be chalky, but from $8,000 and below, my personal recommendation would be to be a little bit more pivot heavy, especially in this kind of format. Let's go through a few of the lineup concerns for tomorrow, a few lineup construction things, and then I'll wrap this up with props like we typically do. So in terms of lineup construction, right, for cash, there's not really a wave edge to be had here. I don't think you have to play all chalk for this slate either, right? It's not going to be a super condensed slate when it comes to ownership. But if you want to take somebody that ball striked the heck out of it today, that played well, right, that's getting some ownership, that's fine in cash, right? So let's say you really like Xander's round, right? You really liked the ball striking that you saw. Let's say you really liked Ricky Fowler. Let's say you really like the way that DJ hit every single fair bait, right? Well, these sort of players in a cash contest are much more viable, right? They're not as detrimental from the game theory perspective. And if you really like those sort of plays, I think the place to take them, if you want to play Showdown tomorrow, would be in a cash kind of contest, right? You're only trying to beat 50% of the field. You don't need to get leverage against the 10, 20,000 other people that you're playing against. And just trying to beat the other half of the field. So if you're in love with guys like Xander tomorrow, you really think of Ricky, DJ are going to go out there and light it up, then play a showdown. Play a cash showdown contest, right? If you like pivots like I do tomorrow, right, get into guys that maybe have to be a little bit more aggressive, then go for the GPPs, right? All of the players that we talked through are guys that you could throw in a GPP build. Let's see, you could throw like a Rom in there. You could throw, I don't know. Let's throw Hideki in there. Let's throw JT in it as well. All right. I'm much more pivot heavy in those sort of contests. So we're not going to spend a bunch of time on that. You guys have seen this tidbit, this section of the video a million times at this point. If there are any specific questions, I'll go through them. But yeah, not too crazy. Let's see. Where you guys at down in chat? Single entry late tomorrow. Who do I like? Probably Brooks and Cantlay. Those would be my top two plays. I think the cut line will be +2, maybe +3 if it gets a little bit more difficult. That'll depend on setup, though. Do I think Cam over 69 strokes or under 79 strokes? Oh, so big discrepancy between the two. Probably the under 71. Bennett keeps impressing you. Yeah, he's a stud. Did I profit from all those slips? I lost a little bit on Underdog. I made money on Prize Picks. So about a break-even day. Which honestly, if that's going to be a bad day, right, I'll take it. Underdog strikes off. Yeah, there's probably a huge discrepancy, I would imagine. We'll look at it. Drop those likes. Dude is exhausted from a 10-mile hike. Yeah, I'm not ever gonna beg for likes, but hey, if you want to smash that like button, help share this to a few other people, show a little bit of love on your end. I'm not against it, right? Go ahead, hit it, right? Todd says you have a 40-1 on DJ. Any other bets that I like? First off, sick bet, right? I'm also there on DJ. But in terms of live bets, there's nothing that I've fired on yet, Todd. I'd have to do a full look at the board, go through my projections and so on to give you a definitive answer there. So if you're in the Patreon, go ahead, ping me on there, ask me there, and I'll get back to you later. But it's going to take me some time to go through that. You shouldn't be taking strokes anyway, dude. Honestly, you could. Absolutely, you could. He's at 71 strokes, like Worry said. I think that's a good prop, right? If the average is about 71 strokes, like Cam is much better than average. Need to be worried with Cantlay or Brooks to miss the cut. I want Brooks to make the cut. I want Cantlay to miss the cut. So kind of depends on each player, right? Max says, thoughts on Lowry and Reed for Showdown. I like Lowry and I love Reed too. Both low-owned, good pivots. Bennett and Gordon Sargent. I like Gordon Sargent tomorrow. And Forbes is acting a fool down there in chat. We're not even going to give him the time of day. Let's go over here to the prop side now, figure out what we're going to do. And it looks like Prize Picks has adjusted the board, right? Looks like a lot of props are lower than they probably should be. And I side towards fades, right? Particularly towards the guys that have been over adjusted. But from what I'm being told down in chat, it looks like if we want to take, supportive stances, over here on Underdog isn't the worst idea. So let's go through it, see what we've got. Guys slightly over par, kind of disagree with it. They bumped Cam, by the way, for the guy down in chat that was talking about it. 71.5 on a lot of these guys that struggled today. You have 71.5, yeah, on guys that shot over par. It seems like they're really biasing these towards the round one scores, which I'm not sure I agree with, right? It's a single round sample size. So think kind of like with Showdown, and it's just because they priced it this way, right? There's probably value to be had here for the overreactions, right? Guys like Terrell Hatton at 71.5, the Sanjay Ims at 71.5, the Justin Rose, right? Tommy Fleetwoods of the world, the ones that went out there and burned us, today. You might want to go out there and take their unders tomorrow. Now, I'm going to have to do more research, right? We're not going to enter a bunch of slips here on the stream. 90% of them are going to be posted afterwards, after I can do all my research, all my analysis and whatnot. But yeah, kind of like Showdown, it looks like there's a bit of overreaction going on, even from the line maker side. You can see over here, right, 71. Let's see what else they have. Looks like they're like half a stroke lower, so they're not that much lower over here on Prize Picks. But there is going to be at least some value to squeeze out of there. Let's see, 70.5 for Hideki, right? He's at 71.5 on Underdog. So let's go ahead. We'll slot him in as the one prop we're going to take over there for now. And let's see what else we've got. 70 for Fitzy. You got 69.5 for Finau, right? That's a stroke difference compared to the other site. Yeah, we got Homa 69. Wasn't he 70.5? A stroke and a half difference. I might have to take that one instead, right? A stroke difference is nice, but a stroke and a half difference is even nicer. So yeah, let's find Homa. Let's throw him in there. Let's find another stroke and a half difference. I don't hate the idea of that. Let's see, we got Cam Smith. It's still a stroke and a half difference, right? And they're both, one's AM, one's PM. All right. For the sake of the stream, this is the slip we're going to go with. I'm going to wait for the rest of them. Right. I'm going to try and do the research that I need to do. But both of these are a stroke and a half lower over there on Prize Picks. So Prize Picks, it seems a little bit more jumbled. This board, I don't like that much. These birdie numbers are all at least half a birdie higher than what they were for round one, which is not ideal. And then they kept a bunch of the guys that didn't play well today at 3.5 birdies. So yeah, both of these boards, very biased based on round one. And if there's anything I've learned about golf, guys, is that you don't overreact to a one round sample size. And it looks like these boards have overreacted. So we're going to have to look at shots gained metrics. My recommendation to you would be to try and find guys in round one that struggled either because they struggled around the green or they struggled with their putter, right? If they gained off the tee, they were able to go out there and gain on approach. They're probably guys that you want to take for a bounce back performance, right? A lot of putting, a lot of around the green comes down to variance. A lot of it is just luck based. Jordan Spieth today, right? For example, he had like 4 lip outs from what I could count out there. You had guys like JT that hit the flag stick on hole number 3 and ended up ricocheting like 25, 30 feet off of the green. Those kind of bad breaks, right? They're hard to encapsulate in stats, right? You're not going to look at stats and see that. If there's anybody you notice that was a little bit unlucky today, maybe you go out there and try and take them for a bounce back too. So that would be my take on it. Let's see. Have they posted anything else? No. I don't know. The birdie numbers seem like decently fair. Like there's going to be some overs at 3.5 that I like for sure. This course was scoreable, or even if they take some, difficult pins, there's still going to be holes that you have wedge in hand that you can throw it to like 3 to 5 feet. Like just off the top of my head, like this Neiman, this over on Sahith, kind of seem like the props I want to take. And so we'll do a slip for each site, right? We'll put Joaquin and Sahith over on birdies. What I like about these two specifically, right, just to give you some reasoning here, is the AM wave, right? I think they're going to have next to perfect conditions out there, right? We know they're going to have the overcast. And then Neiman and Thigala specifically are high birdie percentage players, very aggressive guys that'll go out there, go after it in terms of birdie percentage. And don't hate that one there. So we'll go with those two. Yeah, you're acting a fool out here. I'm not sure what those emojis were. Mark says odds that Jay Rose will make the cut. His life could depend on it. I don't think it's likely, but he could. It's a course, right? You saw -8s out there, right? He shoots -8. He's definitely making it. Do I like Sargent? I do. What are you posting the other picks on my Patreon, bro? What? Justin, you're saying a lot of just weird questions that I don't understand. So you might want to try and clear that up a little bit. Bryson also off. Yeah, 1.5 strokes. I noticed that. I'll have to look at my projections. He's a little bit more volatile. I don't know if I love Bryson as much. He's a little bit prone to variance. Fleetwood stroke difference. Yeah, what's he at? Good call. So strokes for Fleetwood on Prize Picks. Where are you at? Good old fairway god. He's 70.5. What is he on Underdog? Was he 71.5? Yeah, he's a stroke off. Yeah, I'll have to look at my projections. Like these guys that were a stroke and a half off, like were obvious values to me. The ones that are stroke off, we're gonna have to look into a little bit more, right? We're gonna have to look at the shots gained, make sure that they were stout from tee to green. And if they were, I'll probably fire on them. But with that being said, guys, I have some prop stuff to get into. I have some research to do, both in terms of birdie averages, in terms of green averages, all that sort of fun stuff. So I'm going to hop on out of here. So hopefully you feel a little bit more prepared for tomorrow. Hopefully we can cash out on those slips and add to the bankroll heading into the weekend. Should be a lot of fun out there tomorrow. Going to be a little bit less time, right? I'm only going for like 4 or 5 hours tomorrow, but going to make the best use of it. So best of luck out there, guys. Let's take home a GPP. And I want to see a bunch of 5-6 leg slips hitting tomorrow, and you guys cashing out there for Friday. So best of luck. I'll catch you guys then, and we'll have the round 3 and 4 streams coming up.